1 month into the NHL season, and there have been a few surprises for the Flyers at the start with our latest Broadcasters Roundtable with Jim Jackson, Brian Boucher, and sitting in for Todd Fedoruk is Brian Smith. Guys, they won 8 of their first 14 games, 5 of a possible 6 points in the last 3, and after a couple of rough games at home at the end of that homestand against Toronto and Calgary, Rick Tocchet was pretty direct with his assessment of the lack of what he called will in those 2 games. And boy, they responded in the right way. That was a direct, no-nonsense call to action by Rick Tocchet. Risky move. It obviously didn't turn out that way.
I don't think so. I think Toc has been around long enough to know when certain buttons need to be pushed. And I think he felt like, you're at a point in the season where it's early, you can make an emphatic statement about where you feel like your team is at and what they're lacking, and see if they respond and get a gauge of the character of your group. And I thought they responded very appropriately. I mean, I thought that game in Montreal, they took it to the Canadiens right away, some penalty trouble, or you could actually argue some questionable calls, got the Canadiens back in the game, but then the Canadiens got momentum and they're able to hang in there. But to me, that was an appropriate response, to have an effort the way they did, and a character win, and then follow it up with a good comeback in Nashville after a slow start. So to me, Rick Tocchet's move to do that, I think, gave him enough information about his group. What do we have here? Right. And I don't think it was ill-timed or too soon to do it. I think it was appropriate.
I loved what he said about, hey, you're at home and you just came out with 2 performances that are unacceptable. I mean, good on Toc.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think we're looking for trends here through 10, 15, 20 games. And you look around the league, teams are up, down, all around. And in the East, everybody's at 500 until the other day. Buffalo dropped below. But it's like it's really hard to find something to grab onto. So the couple things are that this team is resilient. Obviously, they've had 6 come from behind wins, and they've come from behind to get points, 5 times already when trailing after 2. That's usually a full season's worth of that. Right. And they respond to their coach, which they did in that game in Montreal. They've had 2 bad starts since that game, but they bounced back from both of those games to get a win and at least get a point against Ottawa. So that's certainly a trend. They're resilient. This is a resilient bunch. The other trend I really like, which I think Toc has a lot to do with, is they are so much improved defensively. I mean, I would much rather have a team be sitting 8-5-2 or wherever they are. They're a pretty good start record-wise, shutting teams down and still looking to maybe find their groove offensively, as opposed to a team that's winning 7-6, 6-5, because that's not sustainable. Their defensive numbers right across the board from goaltender on out are better. They're allowing less shots, save percentage is better, penalty kill is outstanding. They're allowing 2 goals or less, right up there with league leaders. That is sustainable. That's something that if you can do that all year long, you're going to be a playoff team. So those are the 2 trends I've noticed the most.
Yeah, and we'll get into individuals, but as far as the biggest surprises to me, it's just that how good they've been defensively. 2 goals or less allowed 9 times already. I mean, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, I mean, it's been hammered into them for the last 3 years, right, by the previous coaching staff, and that's all they worked on. And now it's been interesting this year to see them working on offensive systems, which I don't think we saw much of that the last 3 years. And some of the players have even come out and said it, that now we've got things going on the offensive side of the puck, that we know where guys are going to be and things like that. And I feel like it almost lends itself to better defense, when you kind of have the whole package there going on. And obviously Dan Vladar has been a very, very welcome addition. I hesitate to use the word surprise, but he has been off to a fantastic start here, and solidifying the goaltending situation after things were a little bit wonky last year with 3 guys here and there. It certainly gives everybody back there a lot more confidence.
All right, I'll avoid using the word surprise, but one thing I didn't anticipate. I didn't think Trevor Zegras would have the positive impact he's had this quickly. I mean, this guy's again, not surprised me, but I guess in a way he has.
Yeah, you don't know what you're going to get, right? I mean, he played out west, so how much do you really know about this player? Right. He's playing late at night, and he's gone through some injury issues that he's had to deal with. he was humbled, I think, big time in Anaheim with such a great start, came out the gates fast, and with the injuries, and then different coach comes in and kind of gives him a different role and tries to change the way he plays a little bit. I think it was hard for him. So you don't know what type of player you're going to get when he comes here. So I don't think it's wrong to say it's a bit of a surprise. It's a pleasant surprise. And I think what you're seeing is the player that, if you go back and watch when he played at the World Juniors in Edmonton, it was during COVID. I think there were no fans there. If you watch him play in that tournament, he had swagger, but he backed it up with his play on the ice. It was not just talk to the media. He really put that team on his back, and there were some good players on that team. Like, I think Brink was on that team, Matt Boldy, York. But he was the guy. He was the guy that led the charge, and he did all the talking, and he backed it all up. And I think we're seeing some of that swagger creep back in here in his play early on in the season, and that's a great thing. And hopefully, with all of the the hardships that he's had the last couple of years, this is a more resilient player, more mature player that has learned from past experiences, and hopefully this is just scratching the surface of the player that we hope he can be.
Mature might be the key word, because he's been really coachable, and Talk has raved about that.
He really, what I like about him, the one thing we knew about his skill, saw that in the World Juniors, saw that in his first couple of years in the NHL. The will was not what I didn't know. As Bush mentioned, we didn't see him play much once he got to the NHL. When you're out west sometimes and we're east, you just don't see him that much. You saw highlights. Everybody can look good in highlights. So I didn't know about his will to win. And I thought Talk's comment to him in training camp was perfect. Are you here for clicks or are you here for wins? And he's proving to Talk that he's here for wins. And in fact, he made a mistake, which cost them a goal against Ottawa in overtime. And he was in the locker room a long time after that. He was really, really mad at himself. I mean, he wants to win. So he has the skill. I think Bush and I, even in watching him in training camp, were surprised a little bit. He has even more skill than I thought. And that is coming to fruition where the Flyers need it perhaps the most on the power play. You really notice it. He's opening the ice up for other people. He can also finish when he has to, but he really is showing me that kind of skill that this team is needed on the power play. Now, Michkov has that kind of skill too, and we didn't see it on the power play quite as much last year, but Zegris, it just pops at you when the Flyers are on the power play, when he gets a little ice to work with, and he knows how to use the ice to his advantage to open up the ice for other people. So sadly, that's something the Flyers have missed on their power play probably since they had Claude Giroux, and they are getting that from him in the power play is better. So that's one of his huge additions. But as you said, a lot of it's about off the ice, where I think he's fit in really well with his team. Obviously, he had some buddies, but beyond that, he's just fit in with the guys who were here, the veterans. They really seem to like him, and it's been a good fit.
I knew a little more about him than I do most players that play out west, because I have a teenage daughter and she has teenage friends that all love the guy. And back from his rookie year, I've been getting clips sent to me of him. Her teammates wanted to come here to meet him when he played for Anaheim. So I knew a little bit more about him, and definitely the last couple of years he was down because of the injuries. And I think with the changes that Pat Verbeek put in place there, it was a little bit of a square peg in a round hole. He wasn't in the same sort of systems that he was in his first couple of years. You add that to the injuries, and to your point also, just being humbled a little bit. I mean, how many times have we seen guys like that that have been off to hot starts, and then they hit a bump in their career, and then they come back on the other side even better. For me, the story I'll always tell is Jeff Carter coming out of here when he was first traded, and he was a good player here, but he turned into a different good player in Los Angeles once he got there. So I really see it as a successful example of what Danny said he wanted to do when he was hired, which was go out and find guys that they can bring in here and be like a little bit of a reclamation project, rather than have guys hit a plateau here and then leave and be better somewhere else.
And Zegris' creativity on display. We have a new sponsor, by the way, Snickers satisfying moment of the game, and it might have been Zegras' no-look pass to Cam York on that goal the other night.
This power play, obviously, for the last couple of years has been lacking a little bit. It has not been fun to watch. If anything, can spark it. It's some creativity and like what Trevor Zegras seems to have brought to it here. He's like he's got some radar. He knows where people are going to be, and he doesn't necessarily have to see them there. And we saw it on that play. And that's a huge goal in a game in Montreal where you're trying to keep the crowd out of it as much as you can because there's such a rabid fan base there. That was a fantastic start that they obviously needed to pull the 2 points out of there that night.
Yeah, if you're on the ice with Trevor Zegras, you better be ready because we've already seen a no-look pass, the behind-the-back pass, which got us this moment, and also the Houdini-like setup for Couturier when he was able to avoid the hit from Bennett and another Panther and set up Coots in front. So be ready if you're on the ice with Trevor.
Unpredictability. Sometimes
Yeah.
on the power play, you got to be unpredictable. And I think in the last couple of years, there was a lot of predictability on our power play. Zegras improvised certainly on that one.
Danny also was on record as saying, we want to see if we can't make him a center again. And they haven't necessarily been tied to that. When that wasn't working, the presence of Christian Dvorak has allowed them to kind of adjust and do it successfully.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it's a work in progress. I mean, the one thing that probably stands out is, the face-offs, right? That, he's admitted it's something that he's working on. But once, you get in zone, whoever the first guy back is the guy that's typically going to go help down low. So I've seen him in games make good reads and go help defensively and be responsible to help out the D, which is typically what most centermen do. So you can see he's got those instincts, and I think it's interchangeable after the face-off takes place that will be the case. So listen, I think there are situations in games where you need a face-off win. Is he going to take the draw? That's up for the coach to decide, and I think that's where Dvorak comes in and is so helpful. And on the power play, they got to think about it because they need a guy out there to take that face-off. If he's on the unit with Cates can take the face off and he can do his thing. Because it's super important on the power play to gain possession right away. So listen, it's a work in progress. I think he's open to, not being stubborn about the fact that he needs to play center. I think he understands that it's a fluid game and you can end up wherever you end up as the play goes on. But hopefully if you can continue to get better at faceoffs, maybe that day will come where he's a full-time center.
There's also an old saying that says you don't know what you have or appreciate what you have until you lose it. The importance of Tyson Forrester really highlighted by the fact that when he went out of the lineup, now you've got some tough decisions to make. I mean, we knew how good Tyson Forrester has been, not only this year, but going back to last. But that line with Cates and Brink and Forrester turns out to be one of the best shutdown lines in hockey. And now you got some tough decisions to make. They've separated Cates and Brink here the last couple of games, and that's worked.
Yeah, that has. I mean, Bobby Brink seems to have shown a little chemistry with Matvei Michkov at times. As Toc talks about it, it's a puzzle, and they lost a big piece of that puzzle with Forrester, so they had to kind of shuffle those pieces of the puzzle around again, and that process is continuing. The good news is it doesn't look like it's going to be too long term. He's skating again, Tyson. So I think when he comes back, the decision will be, do you put that line back together?
Right.
Tox indicated maybe he doesn't. I will say here right now that I think that line will get back together at some point, even if it isn't right when they come back, because a coach loves to have a line that he can put out there against the top line of the opponent and still get offense from it. And that's what that line is. So there aren't that many in the league like that you can have the confidence that they're going to shut the other team's top line down, but also be an offensive line for you. So I think that line will be back together, but maybe not. You are seeing some matchups. The Brink Michkov, for instance, is one of them that have kind of worked with Tyson out. So maybe you try to stick with some of those. Those are good options for a coach.
I don't know that they'll ever be called a shutdown line, but the analytics against Montreal, when they played Dvorak with Zegris and Tippet against Montreal's top line, their analytic numbers were phenomenal.
I mean, you always look for a silver lining when something like that happens, right? And a lot of times they just say next man up and things like that. But you got to remember that line, that Brink, Forrester, Cates line was put together almost by accident. And
all by accident. So, really, they were what was left of.
Yeah, it was what was left on the table after they'd made the rest of the dishes. So, that's the opportunity, I think, there is, okay, Tyson's out. While he's out, let's try some other combinations. Maybe we wouldn't try if Tyson was in the lineup, and then you start finding some things. And you talk about surprises. I think Dvorak's been another guy that I don't know that we anticipated what he was going to bring to a lineup. And when you're able to pair him with, the right guys, they do find themselves in some situations that maybe they weren't expecting to use him in, and he's been very effective.
Jimmy said special teams has been good so far. Power play has shown signs of improvement.
Hope.
There's movement on the power play that maybe we haven't seen before, and I think the numbers eventually will get there. PK has been just great all season long.
Yeah, Montreal got a couple, but that power play is sick. They're the only team to score them, right? In about the last 10, 11 games. So it's been really good. And when you bring up the offseason, Flyers didn't get that much publicity. They got some for the Zegras move, but Dvorak, Vladar, even Noah Juleson has done everything you could really ask. He's served his role and probably coming off his best game as a Flyer on Saturday. So Danny, 15 games in, small sample size, but Danny Briere at this point has had a pretty good offseason, and it wasn't heralded as a huge offseason in terms of what they went out and did when you compare it to like Mitch Marner and some of the other big-time moves that were made. So kudos so far for the newcomers, because they've all really helped.
The roundtable we did before the season started, I remember you making a point of saying, let's not forget that Michkov's going into a sophomore year, and the second year into the league is not a given, that no matter what you did the first year. And they had success without Mich really piling up points early on. Now it looks like he's found his game.
Hopefully. Yeah. And, obviously there's, a lot of talk about his off season and injury, kind of slowed his training and whatnot. And it's a good lesson for a young player that when you think you got it figured out, you don't. It's a good league. And there's a lot of people that are competing to try and do their thing in this world of hockey that you've got to respect, and you've got to take care of that. And I think for Michkov now, it's kind of trying to catch up on the fly. Goals now and back-to-back. Hopefully this is what he needs to get going. And with Forrester out, it's forced Tocchet to have to come up with new line combinations, and hopefully that unlocks a player like Michkov, because otherwise, if you always had the Cates, Brink, Forrester line, you'd always have that group, and you'd be trying two lines to figure out how we're going to fit. Now you've got three lines where you're trying to figure out this puzzle, and you always know you can go back to that line with Cates, Brink, and Forrester. But the other ones now, you tinker and see where guys fit. And I still think, trying to unlock a guy like Michkov, try to unlock a guy like Tippet. Konechny's been playing good. He's been getting points, but those are the guys that you're trying to unlock. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out when Forrester gets back. Does he, does Tocchet have enough evidence of what the other two lines could be that he can fit Michkov and Tippet in certain situations? But for Michkov, I think this has been a good lesson to learn. And that's what you have to do as young players learn. As
he's learned the NHL game, and that's an ongoing process. Toc believes in pairs, and he's more often than not had him with Couturier. I think Couturier is a player that'll help Michkov, and he is.
I mean, Coots has been for many years a guy who you will catch him on the bench talking to players, younger players, veteran players. So yeah, I mean, I think that's it. Toc says that you can tell Beach has a respect for him. So that seems to have worked. As I said, Brink and Michkov, when they were together for some shifts, that line has looked good. Bush and I've also noticed, and this is part of what Mich has to go through, is teams are really giving him no space. They're coming at him. So they know that if he's given time, he creates. So he has to now make the next adjustment. And I'm pretty confident he's a very smart hockey player. He's got great hockey IQ. So he'll come up with something. But the situation is he's got to be obviously feeling 100% about his skating, about his body, about everything before that can happen. And I think we're getting close to it.
And I will say, but like with Michkov, and you watching those last game or two, there's a competitiveness to him on the walls. And you talk about being healthy and believing in his body to be able to do certain things to protect pucks. He's got a low center of gravity. He should be strong to be able to protect those pucks and then make plays from there. But you could see, I don't know if analytics can can give you this, but you can watch it and see, wow, this he wants it more right now in these last 2 games. That to me is what has to come first before anything else comes. And that's where I'm hoping that maybe now it's going to get going.
The goalie
Sanderson, because
the goalie scored
really good
against
defenseman that he just shrugged off.
kind of a reverse hit and created him
Yeah.
some space, and he could go to work from there.
I mean, you know as well as any of us that as you're coming up, you go through levels, and it's not just, you don't just show up in the NHL one day. You've got, you started as a 8-10-year-old, and you're going from there to youth teams, junior teams, and then poof, one day you're in the NHL. And he didn't have any time in the American Hockey League or anything like that. He just jumped right from the KHL to here, which my understanding is very different hockey. So it wouldn't be expected for him to just show up here and know everything, know how to approach everything. It takes everybody, I think, a little bit of adjustment, a little bit of time to get it right at the NHL level.
You brought up the name Owen Tippet. This is a guy I still think can score 30, 35 goals in this league, if not more. And he's always been streaky. And he had 5 goals in a 5-game stretch, and now he's gone a few without one. How does Talk unlock Owen Tippet? Because that's what his objective is to help him get to the next level.
It's something that I often think about with Tippet is like, when I watch him play, a lot of his chances that he generates, he typically generates with his own speed and skill. He's not afraid to take guys one-on-one. I think the idea of being a give and go type player, finding somebody that he can play with that understands what he's doing, I think that's what you got to try and figure out. Talk would know a lot more on that than I ever would, seeing that I was a goalie and what forwards' strengths are, needs, and how you make a player work with somebody else. But I agree with you. He's a 35-goal talent, no question. I think it's just finding him to be with a guy that he knows where the next play is going to go, that can put him in situations to use his best attribute, which is his shot and his speed. I'd love to see him score a few more of the greasy goals around the blue paint and not just rely on the shot and beating a guy. I think it's just, some of those, tip goals, those second chances, ugly goals. You got to get, if you get 5 to 8 of those a year, now your goal totals go up and good things happen. So I believe in Tippet. It's just, hopefully with this Forrester injury, it kind of is a blessing in disguise that you kind of unlock him with maybe a player you weren't really thinking about.
He's one of those guys that it's tough for me because I have this one theory I have is if you're getting the chances, you're going to eventually get the goals. He's getting the chances. He still leads the team by a pretty significant margin this year. And he actually was not necessarily right at the top when he had his 5 goals. He's been getting more chances lately, not burying it. He's hit a post or 2, but I mean, to me, he is a guy, like you say, we all say 35 goal potential. So we know he can finish. If he's getting all these chances, they should start going in. But like you say, the way you usually unlock that is not some spectacular goal, and he's certainly capable of that. It's more a tip, or he had that one goal earlier in the year from behind where he banked it off the goalie, a goal like that. And hopefully he gets onto another streak. But I think he's forever streaky.
He's a big guy. He can play physical, and I think that helps him.
Yeah.
And he's also, for me, been a guy that is always, you can tell that he plays better when he's confident, when he's got the right mindset that he knows he can go out there and dominate certain parts of the game. He's a lot more effective. And when that kind of goes away a little bit, you see that part of his game kind of sneak away. I feel like today's NHL, there's a lot of situations where you've got to find the right guys to play with somebody. It seems like more than it was maybe 20 or 30 years ago. But the one guy that always has popped in my mind in that element is when John LeClaire came here. I mean, he comes from Montreal. He's kind of just another forward, and you put him with Big E, and he's a 50-goal scorer all of a sudden. That's the drastic example. But I think you just figure out what the right mix is, and eventually you find a good person there to unlock.
One of the trends that I'm sure you noticed, as I did, going into those 2 road games in Montreal and Nashville. Before that, The Flyers were not getting a whole lot of offense from their blue line. In fact, they were one of the lower scoring teams from their defense. Now, it's pretty early to be worried about that. But Cam York and Jamie Drysdale, in those two road games, they combined for 7. Flyers D combined for 7 points in those games alone. I don't want to take anything away from York and Drysdale or individual guys, but at some point we got to recognize Todd Reardon and his work with defensemen is going to really help those guys.
Yeah, he's had a good track record in Pittsburgh. Letang, I've talked about it, Goligoski. Yeah. One other name.
Schultz had a couple good years there.
Yeah,
a couple.
Somebody else's the name is escaping me, but he's done it.
Dumoulin was good there.
I feel like there's one more guy that I'm forgetting, but the point is that he's had good a good track record working with defensemen and running D, where he's been before he had the brief stint as a head coach. And I think with young players, I don't want to say that they're sensitive guys, but like everybody is, that you've got feelings, right? And you've got to feel comfortable and you've got to feel like you're empowered. And I think for Drysdale in particular, I don't know that he felt that in the last couple of years since the trade. I think, he understood it's important and, what he's got to do, but I didn't get the sense that he was all that comfortable. And I think right now, I see a different player. I see somebody that whatever Todd Reardon is telling him, he's buying it. And he's got a belief in himself, and he's got a feeling about himself that I think is the feeling that he had when he was a junior player and when he was a really talented player. And so to me, Reardon deserves a lot of credit on that. For Cam York, we know it was a turbulent time for him last year. Let's be honest. He looks like a different player right now. I mean, that's really all I can say.
What difference do you notice in his game?
Well, I just, making decisions, like quick to make a decision, right? Not in between. Like if you're going to defend, you go. If you're going to get going offensively, make a play. Like be decisive in what you're doing, and you can see when a player has a slight hesitation to their game because they're not sure. They're not sure what hey, is it the message or am I told that I can't make this play? Like Tocchet wants their D at the blue line. If you can beat a guy up top, beat him. Now we're cooking. Now you're in the offensive zone. We got movement, but before, if it's like you get that puck, you walk it, throw it down, like. Okay, throw it down where? Like, where am I throwing it? Like, and I think they've got now they're decisive in what they want to do. I get it. I have the ability to do it. The coach told me I can do it. And now I make a move and now we got some offense, to develop. And to me, that's what I see from those two guys.
And to your point as well, like, I think last couple of years, the offensive system was get it to the blue line, get in the zone, and then it kind of happens from there. I think now the defense has some direction on where they're supposed to be, where they're supposed to go, where they're supposed to play the puck. And I think that helps them too.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think that there's that thing in the back of his head that if he makes a mistake that he's going to hear about it later. I think there's a different dynamic there. I also don't think when it comes to Drysdale, I don't think there's a non-zero effect that Trevor Zegras is here too. I think that
helps.
Looks like he's made him a little more comfortable. And you saw what happened when Scott Lawton was traded. The room felt kind of like it was hollowed out a little bit, and now it's built back up. But those guys in particular were so close in Anaheim, and I think having them here together, as much as a forward can benefit how a defenseman plays, I think that's there a little bit too.
I could actually very easily see Trevor talking to Jamie on a game-by-game basis, pumping him up because that's his personality too. As for Cam York, I mean, we've all been wondering why he wasn't on the power play at least a little bit. I mean, the Flyers power play has struggled so much in the last 3 or 4 years. Why not try everything? And for some reason, he never really got a legitimate shot. And I think that's helped him too. It's helped his confidence, and it helps, I think, his even strength play. And he's always been, or I should say, I don't know if always, but certainly since he's been a Flyer, he's been a pretty good shutdown defenseman. Well, now you got a guy who can shut people down, but can also contribute offensively. And Sanheim and he are a good pair. Drysdale and Sealer. So the defense, and Todd Reardon deserves a lot of this credit, is really, and we talked about Juleson, and now Andre's getting a consistent shot. Defense, I'll be honest, going into the season, I was a little worried, but it's really settling into, as long as they can stay healthy, a pretty good unit.
Well, and we can finish with goaltending, because when you get good
Yeah,
goaltending,
that helps
everything looks better.
Mhm.
Dan Vladar has gotten off to a great start so far.
Yeah, so important when you come to a new team if you can have that good start, man, it just settles things down, right? Think if it would have been the other way, you come in and struggle out the gate, all the questions you start to mount, and you got to battle, what's inside your head if you know you can get it done. But results help, and Vladar has gotten them early on. And what I like about his game is, he's big, first of all. I mean, I like a big goalie. I think when you have a guy with size, it makes a huge difference. But just because you have size doesn't mean it translates to stopping the puck and winning games. He's calm in there. He lets the game come to him. He understands when it's time to be deep and when it's not time to be deep. Maybe be a bit more aggressive. I think he understands when to get a whistle. I think he gets all of like inside the game, like how he can control the game as much as possible. Now, is that something that he can sustain? We shall see. He's done it at the start of the season. I like how he's vocal with his teammates and how he's constantly talking to them at TV timeouts. Like, to me, that's important. Like, you just can't be a guy that's a weird guy that keeps to himself. Everybody, that's like the notion that every goaltender is like that. Personally, I was not like that. I talked to my teammates all the time. I was one of those guys that
I'm somehow not surprised.
I wanted to give feedback to them. I wanted to, encourage them. Great job.
Yeah.
And guys love that. I think, and I think they're playing hard in front of him. But this is a guy that was just starving for an opportunity to get a fair shot at being as close to a number one as possible. And he knew that the door closed in Calgary with Dustin Wolf and what he had done. And so he recognized that this was a chance where he had an opportunity. And he's gone off to a great side. Now, I'm not, for Sam Ersson, tough injury for him at an inopportune time. Not the same quite start as Vladar, but I still believe in Sam as well. I think I'm going to say, I still think this is a tandem group. This is not like Vladar going to play 65 games and he turns into Andrei Vasilevsky overnight. I still think it's a tandem team, and they're going to have their fair share of starts, and they're going to have their fair share of carrying the ball when they have to. But at the end of the day, when you probably look at it, it's going to be closer to 50-50 when you break it down.
And I think people are saying that, Timmy, because you look at the numbers right now, save percentage and goals against. Obviously, Vladar's numbers are way better than Sam's, but Sam has had an inordinate amount. He had one game, I believe it was the Carolina game, where he saw a lot of shots, but of these 20 shot games where 10 of them or 11 of them are 10 bell chances. Those used to tell me those are the toughest games for a goalie. And the other day ends up giving up. His save percentage isn't. I know the analytics do show this. His save above whatever it's called, expected save is still solid. Vladar's is off the charts.
Apparently, Sam's is right where it's supposed to be, and Vladar is well above
charts.
I always go to
pay
expected
attention.
by
Exactly. That's my motto.
It's all qualitative, and it's like subjective. But bottom line is, I think Sam's better than his numbers, is what I'm trying to say. So I agree with you. I think that we haven't heard the last from Sam Ersson. He's going to have a stretch of the season where I think he plays quite a bit. And Toc showed that. He went to him for those back-to-back games, even when Vladar was playing very well.
Yep.
It's one of the things that Jason had pulled too, his numbers last year for Vladar, that he was constantly getting the bad starts, if you will.
Second
of back-to-back.
Yeah.
Calgary's probably got some of the worst travel in the league. So, he'd be in the second half of back-to-backs. He'd be, the game after a long overnight flight, stuff like that. And here he's getting a little bit of a better draw on the game. So I think that's certainly helped him as well.
And even if you get those here, the travel is not bad. Like, in the East, it's much different.
Right.
So it's good.
Which they're going to find out, because is certainly more positives than negatives in the first month. But 6 of the next 9 are around the road. That's going to take you till December, and then I think we're going to really know what we've got here. But I think the next 4 weeks is going to show a lot.
Great Thanksgiving week, huh?
Don't talk to me. We're in the air during the Lions game.
Go
I'm not
Lions.
happy about it.
That's the first time we haven't over Thanksgiving
in
ever, right?
25
That's
Yeah,
right.
years.
the
something like
Eagles
that,
took
yeah.
over Black Friday. So, yeah, it's going to be that's Tampa, Florida, Islanders, Devils, right?
Yes.
So that's going to be a test. They've got a back-to-back Dallas St. Louis coming up. So
Hopefully,
I really like the way they play those two road games. So I don't think they're afraid of road. They could have very easily beaten Carolina if we go
Yep.
back to that game and weren't bad really in Florida in the opener. So the Ottawa game up at Ottawa, maybe not so good, but they haven't been that bad on the road. So they shouldn't be afraid of it.
During the stretch, I think they got 2 with the Devils. So good teams, bring them on. Let's find out
Yeah.
what we got here.
Absolutely.
Our latest Broadcasters Roundtable for Brian Boucher, Brian Smith, Jim Jackson. I'm Tim Saunders. Enjoy the games.